Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I'm your host, Jon Herold, and Merry Christmas Eve. This is a Christmas Eve stream. My kids are currently over at my parents' house, and so in all likelihood, this will be a shorter show, so we can head over there, but it depends. We'll see what you guys get me ranting and raving about. There isn't a whole lot of headlines to go through. I feel like it's pretty standard, standard stuff, reruns. Some new things, but not a whole lot. But we'll see what happens. Due to the weather, we're planning on hosting ladybugs and stink bugs for Christmas dinner. It is pretty nice weather outside, at least here anyway. It's great, like snow fort weather. Like the snow is a little sticky. I love making snow forts. Yeah, Cece's making some deviled eggs right now. DEFCON 0 last night with G-Money was good. That's good. Me and Bernie Brett recorded our Power Hour for tonight. We recorded that last night, and I will say it was also pretty good. So I'd encourage you guys to tune into that. There will be a Power Hour tonight. It'll just be Elf Boy, Snow Fort, yes. Where you take snow and you make a fort out of it. You can have tunnels and stuff. It's fun. It's a fun time. Janice, it's 70 here. Where are you at? 71 in Central North Carolina? Man, weather, it's like 25 here, and I think it's nice. But anyway, we'll see what happens. If you guys haven't yet, you can get your Christmas gear, Rise Attire, badlandsmedia.tv/rise. It's my Christmas sweater. Love wearing this thing. Let's get a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll start plugging away, see what happens. First up, we got My Shroom Vibe.
Hey there, Earthlings. I'm here on the streets of New York to tell you about something that's literally out of this world. Traveling between dimensions really takes it out of you, but I've found the perfect solution. My Shroom Vibe can now be your Shroom Vibe. Elevate your frequency. Get microdose capsules, gummies, and chocolate bars at myshroomvibe.com. Use code BADLANDS for 10% off your order. Trust me. Galaxy hopping demands balance, and ours comes from Mother Nature. Organic, not synthetic. It's the real deal. Cy Lee, if you know what I mean. Check it out. Your frequency will thank you. Visit myshroomvibe.com. Organic goodness, not synthetic. Use code BADLANDS.
I will say, guys, I take one of these focus ones every day. I don't know if it's enough to actually do anything, but I feel more focused. I feel smarter. I feel like the best version of myself, and it's probably because of My Shroom Vibe. So don't knock it till you try it. The microdosing stuff, I haven't galaxy hopped or anything on it. I don't take those ones, but we also have some Gold Coast. Let's go through some prices here quick before we get to the Gold Coast sponsor. And first up, Bitcoin. Let me see what this is at. Let me refresh the page. Bitcoin 87,000. Still think that's a buying opportunity, guys. Check that out. Gold and silver now. Badlandsgold.com. Gold is down a little bit from record high. Silver at 72.28. Still think it's artificially suppressed. Feels like deja vu a little bit. Gold continues to hit brand new all-time highs. Silver surged to its highest level since 2011. In the face of economic uncertainty and overall fear in the markets, people seem to be moving to safe haven assets like gold and silver. Today we're seeing this not only from hardworking Americans, but from central banks and billionaires too. That's why we've partnered with Goldco. They specialize in helping people protect their savings with real assets, gold and silver. They make it incredibly simple. Go to badlandsgold.com to learn more. You'll get a free 2025 gold and silver kit, and you can qualify for up to 10% in free bonus silver. Free physical silver, by the way. Don't wait till it's too late. Visit badlandsgold.com or click the link in the description of this video. One more time, that's badlandsgold.com. We talked about this a little bit last night on the Power Hour, actually, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But on the economic news yesterday, that GDP is up, even though I hate the GDP number and how they calculate it with government spending. Inflation or rate of inflation change is less than expected. Not quite negative yet. I think eventually it'll get there. But Trump had an interesting Truth Social post on this, He's like, isn't it weird how like we get great economic news and that the market goes down? And I want to get back to a place where when good news comes out, the market goes up, and when bad news comes out, the market goes down. But right now, those two things are detached. And the stuff with gold and silver going up too is it's just interesting considering it's such a traditional safe haven asset. And I wonder how much of the silver especially has to do with how much of it is used in computing and making chips manufacturing. So not financial advice, but I would encourage you guys to give it a look if you got extra cash laying around, or if you have a retirement account. It's never too late. It's not too late. It's never too late. Can't remember who sings that song, but Doge, no update on the Doge website. Super lame. No update on the presidential website either. Also super lame. I feel like I could have swore that there was something recently, but no. Still just a 6G race. Fed Chair Hassett is saying the U.S. is way behind the curve on lowering interest rates. He's not Fed Chair yet. He's a candidate. We don't know who Trump has picked yet. But National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett said Tuesday that the Federal Reserve is not cutting interest rates quickly enough, even though the U.S. economy grew at a much faster than expected pace in the third quarter. He's the leading contender to succeed Federal Chair Reserve Jerome Powell when his term ends in May. And he said artificial intelligence boom is boosting economic growth while simultaneously putting downward pressure on inflation. He says if you look at central banks around the world, the U.S. is way behind the curve in terms of lowering rates. So I do think it'd be interesting to see if he does get the nomination, even though it's a little early. I think Trump said he was going to announce it pretty soon. We'll see what happens with the market and how they respond, because he's going to lower. Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Natural Nikki says, I'm so mad at hubby for not getting silver when I told him to, when it was like $25 or $30. So mad. Yeah, Snackums. I put half my 401k into a gold and silver IRA in October of 2022. The metals IRA is now worth 3 times my initial investment. Isn't that awesome? I would encourage people to take possession of their gold and silver if possible. Just make sure it's physical silver. You want the paper silver. But that's what Goldco can do. Give them a call. Just see if it's worth the call. Calling doesn't force you to do anything. You're not signing a contract when you call. Just see if it's a right fit for you. Bay Arthur's Dick says, Hassett is an economic happy warrior. Trump could do a lot worse, but I also like the idea of a non-establishment candidate that no one knows. I agree. HRBL Amand says, silver will still go up. I'd still buy. Not financial advice, but I agree. I do think it is artificially suppressed. Lower interest rates would be a fantastic Christmas gift. Yeah, we're not getting that this year, but maybe next year. AOB22 says, I'm definitely loving my monster box of silver right now. Yeah, I think it's all going to go up, guys. I really do. Not financial advice again. Phil Scarborough watched the Kennedy Awards last night. Trump hosted, drove the left insane, I'm sure. I didn't actually watch any of it. I was recording the Power Hour with Burning Bright. But I thought it was cool that he's going to MC. And I haven't seen any banger clips come out from it, so I don't know if he said anything interesting. But anyway, probably the biggest story, and I don't believe I talked about this yesterday. If I did, let me know. But I haven't actually read through the Supreme Court ruling yet. I'm going to for this coming Saturday's Power Hour. Me and Chris want to talk about this. But the Supreme Court blocked National Guard deployment to Chicago. They declined to allow President Trump to deploy National Guard troops to the Chicago area, leaving in place a lower court order blocking the move while litigation continues. In an unsigned order, the justices said the administration failed at this stage to show it had legal authority to use the military to enforce laws in Illinois, noting that federal control of the National Guard likely applies only in exceptional circumstances. Justices Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and Neil Gorsuch dissented. So that means Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett sided with the libs on this one. The Trump administration argued the troops were needed to protect federal property and personnel at an immigration and customs enforcement detention facility that has drawn protests tied to the president's immigration enforcement policies. Illinois and Chicago sued after the administration federalized nearly 300 Illinois National Guard troops in order Texas Guard units into the state, calling the actions unlawful. U.S. District Judge April Perry temporarily blocked the deployment, a ruling later upheld by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, which around the facts which found the facts did not justify the president's actions. Perry ruled that the law cited by the administration allows the use of military only when regular armed forces cannot execute federal law, and that the administration did not attempt to rely on those forces before federalizing the Guard. The Justice Department sought Supreme Court intervention, arguing federal forces agents faced threats of violence, but the court declined to step in. Now, one of the interesting aspects of this in the ruling, which again I haven't fully read yet, but they talk a lot about the Posse Comitatus Act, which is something I've researched and written about pretty extensively, especially when I was doing my research and writing with the Devolution series. And so I'm excited to get through this. It's only 25 pages. I just literally haven't had the time yet. But based on what I'm seeing online, and I'm not sure if I agree with it yet because I haven't read the ruling myself, but people are kind of framing this as, okay, well, now Trump has all the reasoning he needs to use the Insurrection Act. They're basically saying, you didn't follow the right steps. You didn't have the right justification. They probably meant regular forces, and ICE doesn't qualify as regular forces. If you're going to do this, you got to use the Insurrection Act. I'm not sure I totally agree, because I think he could have done that at any point regardless. But I'm curious to see what happens with this. And part of the discussion we had last night on the Power Hour was when it comes to these blue states and Trump wanting to fix things in these blue states, and the blue state officials who are not legitimately elected are stonewalling that. At what point, if you're a citizen of those states, do you get fed up and just get out of Dodge? I don't know. Is Trump going to take what people would call an extraordinary step and invoke the Insurrection Act for deportation and immigration stuff? I mean, I can totally see him doing it. Is it the right move, though? I don't know. But you have to stick, didn't Kavanaugh essentially suggest that Trump could circumvent Posse Comitatus by invoking the Insurrection Act? Yeah, let me see if... Yeah, right here. There's a couple mentions of the Insurrection Act here. As I read it, the court's opinion does not address the president's authority under the Insurrection Act. What are they talking about? Under the court's order today, even in those circumstances, the president presumably could not federalize the National Guard under... And that's the Insurrection Act. That's weird. The court's opinion does not address or purport to disturb the president's long-asserted Article 2 authority to use the U.S. military as distinct from the National Guard to protect federal personnel and property. As Professor Goldsmith has succinctly explained, the protective power is the president's inherent or independent Article 2 power to protect federal personnel, property, and functions. The key point is that the president can assert the protective power without reliance on Section 12406. Now, hold on. Let me see what this is. I guess you guys can watch me live dig on this because now I'm confused. Section 12406 is just National Guard and Federal Service. Okay. He can deploy regular armed forces without any need to federalize the Guard. Presidents often have. President Trump holds illegal cards on the use of the military in domestic sphere, executive functions. One apparent ramification of the court's opinion is that it could cause the president to use the military more than the National Guard to protect federal personnel and property in the United States. That's what I'm talking about. That would be interesting. He's like, okay, I tried to use the National Guard. I tried to use your own state forces. You challenged that. And so now I have to take the extraordinary step of just using the military directly. And that'll be challenged too. But I wonder if there's any other mentions of Insurrection Act. Nope. Here we go. And this is Justice Alito's dissent. The court seems to suggest, let me back up a little bit more. That is what happened here. The president authorized the National Guard to perform those protective activities that the Secretary of War determines are reasonably necessary to ensure the execution of federal law in Illinois and to protect federal property in Illinois. Although the court recognizes this inherent presidential power, it does not explain why it is not sufficient to satisfy the new element that the court has added. The court seems to suggest that the Posse Comitatus Act stands in the way of what the president did here, but that is puzzling. Does the court mean to suggest that the Posse Comitatus Act somehow limited a president's inherent constitutional authority? That is certainly not Congress's view. By its express terms, the Posse Comitatus Act is not a complete barrier to the use of the armed forces for a range of domestic purposes, including law enforcement functions. When the use of the armed forces is authorized by act of Congress or the president determines that the use of armed forces is required to fulfill the president's obligations under the Constitution to respond promptly in a time of war, insurrection, or other serious emergency. And in any event, the Posse Comitatus Act expressly permits the use of military to execute the laws when permitted by an act of Congress, and is, of course, part of such an act. The court finds the Posse Comitatus Act relevant largely because of the same phrase, to execute the laws. This is very interesting. Again, I don't want to spend the whole show just reading this and talking about it, but this is one of the things we've talked about with this term is Trump constantly trying to put each of the branches back in their constitutional box. And when we get these rulings from the judiciary, which by the way, all of them are, in my opinion, unconstitutional at this point. Like even President Trump, I know he's the president, he's acting as president, and all these things. I believe he had the mandate and won in 2016, same in 2020, obviously in 2024. But that doesn't mean our election systems are fixed. And over the years, how many of the judicial branch and these judges have been installed via people who weren't elected constitutionally or that were legitimate? All three branches are totally effed right now. And so Trump continues to operate in this paradigm, but at some point, at any point, I think he could, if he wanted to, just step outside of that paradigm into the reality paradigm, like that Chris talks about or whatever. Reality prime, I think he calls it. But he could step into that lane and be like, okay, well, we're just going to do it this way, my way or the highway type thing. How long is he going to choose to operate in this? Like, and another aspect to this is, okay, so the Supreme Court ruled that Trump does not have the authority to call in the National Guard. Well, screw him. Who's going to enforce this? The executive branch is the sword. They're the ones who enforce this stuff. If Trump still thinks that it's needed to send in the National Guard or troops or whatever, a strongly worded opinion from the Supreme Court can't stop him. Like what J.B. Pritzker's going to stand in front of a tank with a Supreme Court ruling and expect not to get run over? No. There's no mechanism here of enforcement. And that's what's kind of inherently broken about our system. The law and the rulings put out by the judiciary will be upheld and can be upheld by the enforcement arm of the executive branch. But if the executive branch doesn't agree with it, they technically don't have to do anything because there's nothing that's going to enforce it on the executive. The whole thing is stupid. But okay, we have this ruling now. So what happens next? I don't know. Trump is either too soft or he's pushing the narrative. It's probably the narrative. Read El Salvador's response to Clinton's crap about abuses in prison. Yeah, I did see that. I'll check that out. Siesta Randy, thank you for the rant. Says, thank you, John, for another year of real news and being part of the information wars. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, too. I appreciate the support. True, he may first delegitimize the district judicial system. The whole thing is so going through myself. Like, it's just so ridiculous. The legal system, the cost, how long it takes. Like, I understand that part of the beauty of the system is like anybody can sue anybody for anything, but that's also part of like what makes it ugly. CanCon, good to see you in the chat. Our system's not broken. People just don't understand how it works. If the president were to do something unlawful, the remedy for that is impeachment and removal, plain and simple, nothing. Okay, yeah, but what does it matter if an illegitimate Congress impeaches a president? It's also stupid. I think the ruling specifically refers to law enforcement, but the Guard was there to protect federal property and agents. That's not law enforcement. Fuck them. Yes, CanCon. I will read this more in full, and we'll talk about it Saturday. And maybe I'll even talk about it more on Friday if I have a chance to read it before Friday's show. But yeah, it's interesting. This is the type of stuff that gets my jimmies rustling because it's talking about presidential authority and Insurrection Act and Posse Comitatus, stuff I've been discussing for 4 years now. It also argues he needs to use the real military first. Yeah, they're going to love that. We should do that. He should do that. What else here we got? State Department is announcing visa restrictions targeting foreign censorship efforts. State Department announced it has imposed visa restrictions on 5 individuals identified as leading organized efforts to pressure American platforms into censoring, demonetizing, or suppressing viewpoints they oppose. Actions, the department said, were carried out through radical activist networks and weaponized non-governmental organizations aligned with foreign censorship regimes. This is great. I love it. Our administration, this administration here, President Trump's administration, Rubio, State Department, they are staunch defenders of free speech. So we are going to sanction foreigners who are trying to impose our free speech. But when are you going to go after the people who are doing it here in the United States, or who have done it here, who did it here? Have we sanctioned Mark Zuckerberg yet for the Facebook bullshit? Have we sanctioned the YouTubers, the YouTube whatever, for demonetizing and deplatforming hundreds of thousands of people in the wake of the 2020 election? Or COVID censorship? Like, when are we going to go over to those people? Like, to me, this is virtue signaling. Like, you can call yourselves defenders of free speech. Those foreign countries, they have no enforcement mechanism on this anyway in the United States. So who cares? Honestly, who cares? Sanction them, whatever. But if you want to be true defenders of free speech, why don't we go after the ones who are doing it here and still do it here? I still do not believe we have actual free speech in this country when it comes to the social media platforms. Not in the slightest. The Twitter algorithm is retarded. Ironically, I did a post yesterday making fun of the breaking news people, and it's probably some of the most engagement I've gotten in a while. Yeah, definitely. Let me show you this. And this was a joke, by the way. The amount of people who did not realize this was a joke is kind of hilarious in and of itself. But breaking with sirens, you guys know how much I hate using sirens or breaking or anything. So that should be your first clue. It's a joke. But then I said, multiple sources familiar with the matter are raising questions about a situation that could be far more serious than previously thought. Something may have happened, said somebody you've heard of, but who asked to remain anonymous for fear of people finding out they didn't exist. It could be bigger than expected. While there is no evidence at this time, the engagement surrounding this story and the siren emojis in this post mean it's super real and serious. More details to come if you subscribe. Making fun of the clickbait people, okay? But even just doing it like that, this is more engagement than a post I've gotten in a while. The Twitter algorithms and all these algorithms, anything with an algorithm, in my opinion, it's not actual free speech, because the algorithm is deciding what other people see. You are not getting to decide what you see. You are not deciding what you get to engage with. The algorithm is. But yeah, so sanctions, great. I don't care, though. Let's actually go after the people who did it here domestically. Gail Time for $5 says, Merry Christmas, John. Thank you for Badlands. Great platform. Wishing you many years of success. Thank you. You guys are very awesome and generous. I appreciate it. AOB22, John, Merry Christmas and thanks for everything you do. You have a good soul with a pinch of spicy thrown in for excellent measure. Spicy, I like that. Thank you so much, though. Elf Boy, the interwebs needs a non-government oversight committee. I don't know what it needs. Anyway, Judge Cannon sets tentative release for Smith report while leaving door open to legal challenges. This is interesting. Federal judge took a step Monday toward the public release of former special counsel Jack Smith's final report on President Trump's handling of classified documents in 2021, but emphasized that legal challenges could block it entirely. Eileen Cannon, who, by the way, Brennan just yesterday said, like, please don't let her get, the case against me. Like, he's freaking out. Anyway, she, who had blocked the report's release for nearly a year, set a tentative release date of February 24th, while noting that Trump or his former associates, Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, could challenge the disclosure and potentially prevent it from being made public. Shortly before Trump's inauguration, Cannon rejected DOJ efforts to release the classified report. Trump has argued that Cannon's ruling should permanently seal Smith's findings. Smith testified to Congress last week, but remains barred from revealing the full scope of his work due to grand jury secrecy rules. Cannon previously dismissed the case against Trump, ruling Smith was unconstitutionally appointed as special counsel. Based. The Justice Department appealed, but the appeal was dropped after Trump returned to office, and prosecutors later dismissed the case against Trump, Nauta, and de Oliveira. I kind of want to see the classified report, if I'm being totally honest. Trump's going to fight this. Trump doesn't want it out there. Or at least he said he hasn't. Most transparent administration in history. But I want to see it. I want to see what he found and made up and whatever. I'd love to see what's in there. As we all would. But I'm not putting any eggs in that basket. I anticipate it being shut down. John, when I saw your post, I couldn't believe some were believing this and didn't get the humor. Yeah, there's a lot of people that thought it was totally real. And then Shipwreck hit the mute button underneath as a joke, like she's like muted. And a bunch of people were like, yeah, me too. Me too. I just thought it was so funny. People didn't get the game. C. Bannon had it right. The whole documents case against Trump is an argument among librarians. So retarded. Yeah, it really is. And there was some bait mixed in there. Like Trump baited them, I think, a little bit. But it was political persecution. They were looking. I do think they were looking for the Russia binder. Frederick Leather is not totally transparent, but it is the most of all we've had. Prove me wrong. I really don't know. I always say it like this, and it's President Trump is the most transparent president we've had. And I think that's my long shot. Like the level of access that we have to this president is unprecedented. He's out there all the time. He's on the TV all the time. But his administration, that's where I think the transparency kind of ends a little bit. They like to say they're the most transparent, and in some ways they are, but are they really in the areas that matter? I don't know. They like to do things. They like to almost virtue signal their transparency by releasing JFK files, which, again, we haven't had before. That's great, but I don't know. CanCon had over 9,000 viewers this morning with Ash. I wonder if they were featured. I bet they were. Good for them. A couple more rants came in. RT Jones says, Merry Christmas and very Happy New Year, Badlands family. Thank you, RT Jones. Appreciate that. $50 from Q of Swords 3. Holy cow. Thank you so much. It says, Merry Christmas, John. May your days be jolly and bright. They are quite jolly and bright these days, I will say. Thank you for that rant. Anita Happen says, Juana Savin says, they're looking for the biscuit, the nuclear codes card that was already memorized by Donald J. Trump and locked up in Cheyenne Mountain in March 2020. I mean, nothing against Juan. I just don't. He's not my cup of tea. We'll just say that. We have more from the Epstein files. There was a letter that was put in there about, I'm not even going to get past the, well, you know what, maybe I should. Let me get to the archive version of this real quick. Again, saying there's fake stuff in the files. Disappearing Epstein files revealed Trump flight with 20-year-old woman. Well, this is a different headline than the last one. Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane more times than previously has been reported, including one journey with a 20-year-old woman. Newly released files suggest. Documents released overnight by the Justice Department mentioned the U.S. president hundreds of times, including references to Epstein's private jet. I thought there was a part in here that said they said it was fake. Well, what the heck? That is so confusing. Let me try this again. Because this is I don't know why. When I archived the link, it gave me a different story altogether. But anyway, Epstein letter about Trump's love of nubile young girls is fake, DOJ suggests. Notes supposedly written by a late pedophile released in latest transfer files. Well, as I've been saying, it's a hoax. There's fake stuff in there. And if we know some stuff is fake, how do we know what's real? A lot of clickbait flying around the Epstein stuff. Just don't stand on the rug and you'll be fine. Another rant for $50. You guys, thank you so much. Mimi, 2 boys times 2 says, Merry Christmas, John. Y'all keep me sane here in California. I appreciate your honesty. It's going to be tough to stay sane while you're living in California. I tell you what, I was kind of partially pulling for us doing Garden San Diego, but we'll come that way eventually again. But Nashville it is. The people had decided. Ukraine Zelensky offers peace concessions and puts the ball in Putin's court. Zelensky signaled new willingness to make concessions on several key negotiating points that have threatened to stall a nascent peace process. Did I say that right? Nascent peace process with Moscow, effectively putting the ball in Russia's court. In an unusually candid and wide-ranging meeting with reporters Tuesday, Zelensky gave new details about a 20-point plan that he described as a foundational document on ending the war. It's a rerun, guys. I don't know when they're going to finally pull the plug on the whole the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but it's another rerun. We have, oh my God, tensions are serious, and we're never going to get peace. And then Putin has concessions. Trump says we're not going to have peace until an election. Then Zelensky's like, oh yeah, I'll concede to a couple points now. Then they meet again, and we'll have Zelensky at the White House or Oval Office, and Putin will come or whatever. And all these high level meetings will be super close and the closest we've ever been to peace. And then something happens and like, oh, we can never have peace again. And the cycle starts over. And that's not perfect, but that's roughly how it goes. Very dumb. Very, very dumb. Let's see what else. Federal court did side with Trump over employers' processing fees for H-1B immigration visas. Federal court Tuesday handed President Donald Trump a victory over processing fees that employers are required to pay for H-1B visa petition fees. He enacted a proclamation in September that added a $100,000 payment requirement before processing employers' petitions for new H-1B visas. Chamber of Commerce and the Association of American Universities filed a lawsuit. The Chamber of Commerce? What? Is that not an official, like... Oh, it's just a business organization. So it's not actually... It's not actually a government entity. It's a 501c6. It's an advocacy. Okay, that makes more sense now. Anyway, they filed a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security. They argued that the president exceeded his authority. Court ruled Wednesday that Congress had granted the president broad authority to regulate entry into the U.S. for immigrants and non-immigrants alike. Therefore, the proclamation had not broken any laws. You know, the H-1B thing is still interesting to me because of where Trump keeps like taking these different stances on the whole topic. Because originally it's like, we're going to shut down all immigration, deport everybody, which I'm totally in support of. And then he had that interview with, I think was it Laura Ingraham, where he's like, oh, we need H-1Bs now. We need to bring all these people in. We got to do it. Our people can't do the job or whatever of building super special defense ships or whatever it was. I don't remember. And then the national security strategy comes out and it's like back to, oh yeah, we're going to shut all this shit down. Nobody's coming through. So which is it? And I love it because it's clearly a psyop. He's doing like the feedback loop thing, playing good cop, bad cop with the same issues. And here we have like $100,000 processing fee for companies to bring in new H-1B visas. That's going to kind of prevent some of these stuff. Like, how many businesses can actually afford that? Probably a lot of the big tech AI ones, but at least there's some benefit coming to the United States from it. Although I'd much rather prefer we just shut it down altogether. I looked up nubile, of an age suitable for marriage, marriageable, used of a young woman. Yeah, they said she was like 20. John, a Northern California GART would be much more American than Southern California. It really comes down to cost. Like our ticket prices, we try to keep it in a range of, you know, anywhere from $450 for the general up to maybe $550 if we have to. And then VIP is usually about $150 more than that. And some of those California venues we were looking at, the pricing, like they kind of priced us out of it. And if you think about it, in terms of how inflation has affected the economy with all this stuff, prices have gone up everywhere. They're continuing to go up, even though they're going up slower than before. But we've done a pretty good job of keeping our prices where they're at for the most part. And we do that by being like very diligent about where we book these conferences at. We do our research. We try to find something we can afford and that we can make it the same price for everybody. But it's getting harder. Like that's why it took us so long to figure out where we're going to do this spring one. Like we already had the venues and everything down for our summer and fall GART. Those are places we've worked with. We like them. Pricing is reasonable and everything's good. But this first one, this Nashville one, it took us a while because we couldn't find a venue that didn't price us out of it. RT Joan, I'm flabbergasted by the fact that Walds, Minnesota stole 18 plus billion from taxpayers. You shouldn't be flabbergasted. Shouldn't be all that surprised. That's what these Democrats do in these blue states. But if you think it's just Minnesota, it's not. It's more. And if you think it's just with Medicaid, if these people are willing to commit fraud on Medicaid, don't you think they're willing to commit fraud on like everything else too? I think I saw something there is what was it? It was a Minnesota realtor who had a video. Let me see if I can find it. MN. There's another way that they do fraud. Yeah, this video here. It's a minute 35, but I'm going to play it.
Here in Minnesota, a local realtor reached out to me to tell me about another way that Somalians are scamming Minnesotans out of their taxpayer dollars. In her community alone, Somalians have bought up over 455 homes. They buy these homes, claiming they're turning these homes into home health care centers. She says the way we know Somalians have bought these homes is because all of a sudden, extremely nice cars start showing up. Mercedes, BMWs, the nicest cars are parked in the driveway. And she said, by law, the state will not come out and inspect these homes and make sure these homes even have clients living in these homes. She also said, as a realtor, she cannot disclose to people wanting to buy homes in this neighborhood that Somalians have bought that home and they're using that as a home health care center. She said these homes can even take people in who've just been released from jail, and the neighborhood does not need to know about this. But she says many of these homes do not even have clients in them. But the state is writing them checks every month for the clients that the Somalians say are in these homes. And these Somalians are making millions of dollars off of these homes every year. The Somalians have figured out exactly the perfect plan as to how to scam Minnesota taxpayers out of their money. They are banking on this, making millions of dollars. And the government here in Minnesota is too lazy to go and check it out and to see if there's even clients living in these homes. The fraud in Minnesota is so deep. Let me know your thoughts on this one.
It's another method. And it just makes you wonder, like, and somebody in the chat, I think it was HRB, Amon said, it's not just Democrats either. You're right. It's not. The way fraud and abuse, right? That's, or the fray wa and abuse. Oh my gosh. Fraud, waste, and abuse is pervasive. And it's not just Minnesota. It's not just blue states. It's not just Medicaid. It's all of it. It's the whole system. The system is inherently broken at every level. And the fact that we can't get to the bottom of it and can't expose it, can't stop it, it seems, it just keeps perpetuating itself. What do we do? What do we do? We kind of talked about this last night on the Power Hour too. I mean, exposing it is good. We're talking about it. At least that's a start. It's the first step anyway. The first step to fixing a problem is like recognizing you have one or whatever the step one of the AA is. But I don't know how we fix it, because like the governments aren't going to, these governments are trying to just stall and outlive Trump. If they can survive through Trump, they can, expose a couple things, but the rest is great and go back to business as usual. But the fraud is pervasive everywhere. And not only are we paying taxes, but they just have the ability to print money and send more money and all these things. Like it's gross. Skeptical says you don't have a functioning government. Military is what you do and hope that isn't fully compromised. Yeah. Exposing it first, and it is everywhere. And then really, at one point, does it become like bad enough and upsetting enough that people are like, okay, well, why am I paying tax? Like, that's the question people need to be asking their friends, their family, their neighbors, their elected representatives, selected representatives. Like, that needs to be the topic of conversation right now. President Trump, and I wish somebody would ask him this. I wish I had the opportunity to ask him this, but I wish any credible journalist, if such a thing exists, would ask President Trump, why should Americans be paying taxes? Because you came into office telling us about this deep state, and we believe you on it. I believe it's real. We know the uniparty's real. We know that you created Doge, and even though it wasn't your idea, it was Elon Musk's, but you played along with it and told us that we're going to get rid of all this fraud, waste, and abuse, which, yeah, great. We've saved $214 billion, Doge has, since the beginning of this year. But guess what? We're spending $7 trillion this year. We've spent $7 trillion, which I think it was a $225 billion increase in spending from last year. So the money we've saved, I guess, and it's still included, like even with the money we've saved, we're still spending that much more this year than last year. Like what are we doing? Why you can't tell us that you're going to do all these things and fix all these things, and just be like talking about the economic growth and stuff that people don't even feel in their personal lives yet, which I do think that's coming. I do think the economic stuff is coming. But if you're talking about all these problems and campaigning on fixing all these problems, and we don't see movement on fixing those things or accountability for it, and we're just getting more stories of fraud, and it's just disgusting. So what point do you have to justify to us, and without the excuse of just like, if you don't, you go to prison, you have to justify for us why we should be doing this. Any other business out there, anyone that operated the way our government does, would have gone bankrupt and dissolved 100 years ago. Or maybe not, maybe that's too harsh. 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. I don't know when the debt started getting so astronomical, but it's ridiculous. I can't think of a single business out there where you consistently outspend the money you have and eventually don't go out of business. Like eventually you have to implode and like kind of collapse on yourself. But not our government. They are not fiscally responsible. Skeptical, it's also blackpilling, John, and does create the Civil War tensions, which is what the deep state wants. I don't see this blackpilling, though. I mean, I think maybe there is a fine line, and this is something we could discuss. I think being more realistic about what I'm seeing is not me blackpilling. I'm not trying to get anybody to blackpill. I'm just trying to get people to recognize the problems here and help me figure out a way to fix it. Because I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I do think talking about it is step one. Step 2, 3, 4, I mean, that's up for debate. And it's going to be different for everybody in their own areas, which is why I encourage you to get active in your local groups. There might be some places in some states where you can actually affect more change than you could in others. I don't know. John, you know how the internet works. The NSA military intel has every keystroke. That's for sure. I agree that. But I don't think the Civil War is a necessary step. I really don't. I think that's what Trump is trying to avoid, and I think that's why he walked away in 2020. He doesn't want the Civil War. That is like the worst case scenario. I know the deep state wants it, but it's also like you have to reform a system that isn't able to be reformed. In my opinion, I don't think you can fix the problems we have by like slapping on some band-aids and maybe cutting off a limb or something. We're fine now. No, like the body of work that we have here it's compromised. The cancer is metastasized everywhere. You can't just cut out one tumor and be like, we're good. So at some point, like it needs to be up to us to figure out a way to throw this current system on and implement something new without taking it to that extreme of some sort of civil war. And I think more people are in agreement about most things than the mainstream media would have you believe. Like I think a lot of the tensions, you know how they can fabricate consensus? I think they can also fabricate the tensions in this country too. Some of them are real. Like they definitely play off people's emotions. It's a real thing. That's what psyops are designed to do. But I also don't think they have the ability to psyop people to that degree like they could have maybe back in 2020 and before. I think they've lost some of their hold and their grip. But anyway. Simple Sam, you Q-tards don't realize the economy would crash if there was martial law. Well, I am not a Q-tard. Although the New York Times has labeled me Q adjacent, or that was NPR. NPR labeled me Q adjacent. The New York Times labeled me a Q promoter. I have not read the Q drops. So joke's on you, I'm not a Q-tard. But yeah, the economy would crash if there was martial law. Maybe. Why do you say that? Do you know that for sure? Probably. And honestly, I don't care. Like, I think the economy it's this nearly fake construct anyway. Remember, it's a war, Q adjacent tard. I hope they used a good photo of you in that NPR piece. The economy is going to crash, but it is being replaced. Yeah, like crash the fake economy. we're basically trying to like grow and inflate our way out of $40 trillion in debt. It's just insane. Why do people think martial law is equivalent to a complete and total shutdown of everything? We shut down the government for over a month, and the pets I do have, which aren't many, but their heads did not fall off. The economy isn't going to crash, Phil says. Next year will be at 5% GDP or higher. Yeah. Again, he's continuing to operate in the paradigm, so I don't know. PJ Corrigan for $20. Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas, John. Love you, brother. Thanks for everything you do and have done for the movement. Being co-founder of Badlands with you has been one of the greatest experiences of my life. Oh, that's funny. Back at you, man. Back at you. I do have a few more stories, but let me see if they're anything interesting and if I even want to talk about it, because I do want to get over to my parents to see my kids. I already did that story. Nothing crazy from Trump on Truth Social, really. Well, he did call Stephen Colbert a pathetic train wreck with no talent or anything else necessary for show business success. Now, after being terminated by CBS but left out to dry, he has actually gotten worse I forgot he got fired. Forgot about that. Already did that story. Nothing there. Ooh, U.S. murders are on pace for the largest one-year drop on record. It's good news. Look at all that crime and going down. Hard to complain about that. We talked about the AI thing yesterday, didn't we? The Gen AI tool, critical first step in future warfare. Yeah, I think that might be all I got for you. For today, anyway. There will be no show tomorrow. Make sure you tune into the Power Hour tonight because it is pre-recorded, but it was a pretty good discussion. So, anyway, what else do I got? Hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. We got another $10 rant from HRBL Amon saying Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you guys too. But with that, guys, I'm gonna play our soft disclosure ad because I do think it isn't even Christmas if you don't get yourself some beard oil and some lotion and some deodorant, maybe. It's just the products are amazing. Very, very proud of what we've been able to do and what Annie's been doing with soft disclosure. It's great stuff. But yeah, we'll end on that, and I will see you guys tonight on the Power Hour. I'll probably be in the chat for a bit, and then tomorrow or Friday back here on the Daily Herold. So wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I'll see you tonight. Get some soft disclosure, and yeah, go spend time with your loved ones, everybody.
Soft disclosure just dropped new favorites for the season. The lotion, your 5-ounce favorite, is still here. And now we've added full 11-ounce bottles. New lavender tea tree deodorant, clean, calm, and effective. New tallow bars, chamomile lemon rose, and naked. Rich moisture that actually works. And now the lineup is complete. Beard oil in unscented and spiced vanilla. Palo lip balms, available in chamomile mint, vanilla, naked, and vanilla tangerine. Palo Bar Minis for pocket-ready hydration. Available in vanilla coffee and naked. And finally, lavender vanilla lotion. Clean, calm, and made to work. Visit softdisclosure.com. Use code Badlands and get 15% off. Soft Disclosure, for truth you can gift.
Let's get started. That's what she said. Oh, that's real good.